but the reasoning, the socialist church's reasoning is they consider that giving.
Can you give me any scriptures or quotations that would, on either hand, that would suggest need?
Some capitalist churches. See, I don't think this is like a major thing that should be discussed in the church because the church isn't like a government sort of place. But the churches that do discuss it, which I don't know if I align with that much, but they claim that some of the commandments even disapprove of socialism because of stealing. So, but if you're like in favor of socialism, obviously it's not stealing, it's you're willingly giving it to the government.
Let me throw in the parable of the talents in the New Testament, where God gave, and he's not talking about skills, he's talking about talents as in money, a piece of money. And some of the workers were given certain amounts and some were given others. And the ones that merited the most praise from the master were the ones who invested their talents and came up with a profit. Does that sound like capitalism to you?
I feel like, yeah, it does. But I can see people arguing that for socialism, that you can do the same thing, but obviously you won't go as far as you could in capitalism.
Well, and I would know people that would argue that the early church seemed to be a socialist organization, everybody coming and giving, and they all shared in the community. But the issue with that is, look for instance at Ananias and Sapphira. They didn't kill over and die because Peter said you had to give this amount. They said they were going to give one amount and they gave another amount, and it was voluntary. So
we talked about Acts 2:45 in the last discussion panel. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Does that sound capitalistic or socialistic to you?
I think that's capitalist because it's not government regulated. It's
Forced.
Yeah, it's not forced. But this is what I will further say about that.
Right.
Currently, our nation was most likely founded on Christianity. I think we can all agree on that.
Says so on my dollar bill.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is that we still have a very high poverty rate, and the church is doing a lot. So I'm not bashing the church at all. But
I am.
oh, okay.
I don't think we're doing nearly enough.
But that's what I'm saying. It's clear it's not enough.
Right.
There is still significant amounts of poverty. There's still significant amount of homeless people. And I'm not saying to stop what the church does at all. But I'm saying there's ways to help people through the government as well. And especially where you live in a society where religion it's freedom of religion. Not everybody has to believe in biblical giving. I feel in giving because of the Bible. Some people don't think it's morally necessary to give.
Let me ask you this, guys. As Christians, is need bad? Is having need bad?
No, I wouldn't say having need is bad, but I feel like your basic needs, if they're capable of being met by a system that would be, honestly, not that difficult to implement and just improve on certain programs that already exist, like food stamps. You can improve on that program significantly. There's so much room for growth. Currently, increase the wages that you have to be in to receive food stamps because the working poor, that's the people that have with that is the people right outside of the food stamp guideline margin. So they're the people that make just more than what you can make to qualify for food stamps. And that is a significant issue because if you're making just barely more than what you need to qualify for student food stamps, you're still not having a very satisfying life. And you're honestly more likely to go hungry than someone who is on food stamps because you're not able to receive those benefits even though you're barely making more.
Can God work through need?
He can, but there's...
Can? Okay. How's that?
Provide for those who need it.
Yes, He can provide for those who need it. Yes. Is there a yearning, a longing that comes with need?
Yeah, but it's not a longing like
And I'm not talking about like I need the new cell phone. I'm talking about like I have nowhere to turn. I'm in need. Can God work through that situation? Yes or no? How?
miracles in the church, other people.
I would say He can bless those people through that need and drawing them closer to Him. He can bless those around them by giving them the ability to bless them, whether that's financially, spiritually, emotionally, whatever that case may be. He can bless you as somebody who has to be able to help the person who has not. Is that correct? So need in itself is not, at least in God's eyes, some way He can't work, right? He can work through need one way or the other, right? Jesus didn't say, hey, go make sure everybody has exactly the same thing. right? He said, go out and help those who are in need, correct? But he also said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, right?
Yes.
Socialist, capitalist, a little bit of both?
I mean, it's pay your taxes. So
I mean,
it's-
at the time of the Bible, neither socialism or capitalism were invented
Okay.
as economic philosophies. So it's really, we're just trying to read those worldviews and ideologies into the scripture.
Well, first of all, I disagree with that. Having the title capitalism or socialism wasn't around, but the concepts were certainly there. Marx didn't invent the wheel when he came up with socialism. He was looking at historical examples and things of that nature as well. But I want to go back, as a history teacher, I want to go back to, because you said that the poverty level and these kinds of things could potentially be easily fixed and some of these sorts of things. What about Russia, for instance? I mean, historically, there were still haves and have-nots in Russia. In fact, in some cases, the gap widened in Russia because of the communist takeover there. And I realize, we're making a distinction maybe between communism and socialism, maybe not. But, and actually for that matter in Cuba as well, the gap widened. So,
What went wrong?
why did the equality not take place as it was supposed to in those countries, or in Venezuela or anywhere else?
Well, in the Soviet Union, they did actually increase equality. I'm not saying that people were living massively luxurious lives, and I'm not also saying that there wasn't corruption in the bureaucracy, because the Stalinistic bureaucracy is just a nightmare. But for the average Russian person, their quality of life drastically increased, going from a feudalist society to a socialist society.
So from super poor to barely poor.
Not barely poor, they were actually squarely in the middle class, as compared to an American.
What about as compared to their leaders?
I mean, are we talking about the chairman? Because, I mean,
Stalin himself,
he was
any
vastly
political leadership?
I don't support Stalin and his policies.
I understand that, but I'm saying by comparison, if this is a society where all things are supposedly equal, money is supposed to trickle down or trickle up, however you look at that, right? And things are supposed to even out. How were those in the middle class living by comparison to those at the higher levels? Was it vastly different than the poor now who are living a gap to the super rich, to the
I
middle
would say
class?
it is. I would say that the bulk of the proletariat in Russia, they were living better lives than the poor in, let's say, an African country that has capitalism and their leader is also super rich.
Right, but I'm saying by comparison to those, so not by comparison to different nations, but comparison to their leaders within the nation. Were they living, was the gap closing? Was it staying the same? Was it widening?
It was closing, not as much as I would like it to, but compared to the vast wealth of the Tsar, compared to a feudal laborer, it didn't close.